Is democracy still alive? Is democracy still alive? There is no such thing as real democracy. Okay? Democracy is a sham. Let me tell you why I see this. What does democracy mean? It means that every citizen of the country who is past a certain age, adulthood, 18, let's say, every citizen of the country gets to participate in the electoral process. Every citizen gets to vote. Every citizen has the right to vote in elections, and every citizen has the right to stand for election. That's what it means. Now, and the theory is that every citizen will vote for a candidate or a party that, according to him or her, is doing the best for the country's national interest, the best possible party. So the theory is that every person understands what the Indian national interest is and knows which party, political party, or candidate is best aligned with the Indian national interest. That's the theory. Now, in practice, does any Indian citizen know what the Indian national interest is? Is is this something that's taught in school, in college, in university? What is the national interest? No one has the foggiest understanding or idea of what the national interest is. And every nation has a different set of interests. India's national interest will be very different from Israel's national interest, or the American national interest, or the Canadian national interest, or the Chinese national interest. So my national interest is different from the interest of other nations. You have to understand exactly what your national interest is. And that, to understand that, you have to understand international relations, you have to understand geopolitics, you have to understand the current threat scenario and climate, you have to understand economics, basic economics. You have to understand so many things. For that, you need to be educated. And even if you have a master's degree, the Indian education system doesn't teach you any of these things. So, for a democracy to work, really work, each citizen needs to be well educated. Is that the situation in India today? No, 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 no. And secondly, we are assuming that each citizen will prioritize the national interest and make and vote for the party or the candidate that best aligns with the national interest. But is that the case in India? In India, we vote on the basis of region, on language, on religion, on caste. There are certain voting groups that vote for interests and agendas that don't align with the national interest, maybe oppose the national interest. Is that democracy? This is not democracy, it's a joke. So, what's the solution? So, in Greece, ancient Greece, they say that Greece was the birthplace of democracy, right? In ancient Greece, who could vote? Could women vote? Am I saying women should not vote? I'm not saying that. Okay, by the way, I'm just saying let's take a look at ancient Greece. In ancient Greece, the Greeks probably believed that women were not intelligent. Okay, they probably believed that. So women could not vote. Secondly, peasants could not vote. So who could vote in Greece in elections? Only the wealthy could vote. Only the nobles and the wealthy landowners could vote. That's about 2 to 5% of the population. Because these people actually understood the world. They understood economics. They understood the threats to the nation. They understood international relations and all that. So only those people who genuinely had an understanding of these things were allowed to vote. In ancient India, dating back to even before Greece, who could vote? In ancient India, we had the imperial system. We had emperors and kings and queens, right? You could not vote against them. You could not. You could not vote to depose the emperor. Doesn't work. So what could you vote for? You could vote for, you could elect your local representatives, your local uh, village level administrators and all that, because most people understand what's happening around them. Oh, my garbage isn't being taken out every day, or the drains are not cleaned properly every week or whatever, or there is corruption in the marketplace or whatever. So the local things people understand. So you could vote for your local officials, and that's it. You cannot vote for the people up high. So you could vote for your local officials. You could elect them into power, or you could throw them out of power through your vote. In India, that's the kind of democracy we had in India. It was a hybrid system, imperial system up top, and locally you had democracy. But over here in India, every 5 years you can throw out the government, you can throw out the prime minister. Is democracy still alive? There is no such thing as democracy. There is no real democracy. It's all a sham. India is more democratic than nations like the US. In the US, you have this artificial two-party system, and no matter who you vote for president, there is an unelected power center that always continues to exist, and they always look out for the US geopolitical interest and overall national interest. So, and if a certain president tries to do certain things that are not in line with what they perceive as the US national interest is, then they don't allow the president to really get things done. So nowhere in the world do you have a real democracy. That's simply the fact of the world. Democracy doesn't mean that you get to vote once in 5 years and done. I could vote, so it's democracy. That's a joke. There are so many nations whose entire political system was created by occupiers. Their constitution was written by occupiers. Their legal system, their laws were written by occupiers. They're not allowed to change the constitution, but they're allowed to vote once in 5 years. And only certain kinds of politicians are allowed to exist. Other politicians, they get bumped off. You call that a democracy? There is no democracy in the world. India may be the closest you have to a democracy, a very chaotic democracy. Elections every other week in some state or some place of some part of India, and people who are not even literate, but they will vote for whoever they think is right. And people vote. Some people vote as a single voting block, you know, vote bank voting and all. So even India is not a proper democracy. This is not how democracy is supposed to be. So, is democracy still alive? No, it was never alive. Democracy never really existed. It's not the best form of government. The best form of government, what is it? It is a benevolent dictatorship, an enlightened benevolent dictatorship. A dictator like Lee Kuan Yew or Chandragupta Maurya or Kanishka the Great or the great Gupta emperors or Lord Ram. Dictators who actually care for the civilization, for the nation, and for the people. And they can get things done with one order. That's the best form of government. The problem with the system of government is that when there's a transfer of power from one monarch or one dictator to another, if the wrong kind of person comes to power, then you are in deep trouble. If somebody like Kans comes to power, somebody like Dhanananda comes to power, you're in deep trouble. So there are pros and cons of all systems. But democracy, nah, it's not alive. It's all a joke. It's all a sham.